Hi guys, Denise from Fascinating Cases here. I recently dropped a video all about Betty Broderick. Betty is in jail to this day after killing her ex-husband and his new wife back in 1989. Betty acted in a jealous rage after Dan Broderick cheated on her, lied to her, and divorced her for a much younger woman. And in return, Betty shot him, which got me to thinking about other women who acted out in a blind, jealous rage. Today we will talk about the case of Stephanie Lazarus, who murdered her rival, Sherri Rasmussen, back in 1986. The case took decades to solve. In the middle of it all was John Rutten, a college student at UCLA back in 1978. He was studying mechanical engineering, and that's where he met Stephanie Lazarus. She was studying political science. The two started dating and bonded over things like a shared passion for fitness. But Stephanie took the situation to be much more serious than John did. John thought they were just fooling around. He never thought of Lazarus as his girlfriend. The two graduated in 1981. John took a job in the computer industry and Stephanie became a police officer. They continued an on-again, off-again relationship. That is, until John met nurse Sherri Rasmussen in 1984. Things got serious fast between John and Sherri, but Stephanie didn't know how serious. She was still hopeful with John, even throwing him a 25th birthday party. But soon, Stephanie found out how serious John was with Sherri, and she was devastated. She even wrote to John's mother, telling her how much she loved her son. Lazarus became depressed about the situation, and she became obsessed. John clearly moved on because he asked Sherri to marry him. But that didn't stop him from banging Stephanie Lazarus one or maybe two more times, for closure, to make it easier on her. But yeah, that kind of thing really helps. And this is while he was engaged to Sherri. The hookup only made Stephanie a little more hopeful, you think? And she told her mother and her friends that she was still in love with John, and she'll never understand his decision to be with Sherri instead of her. And Sherri didn't quite know yet about the hookup between Stephanie and John while they were engaged, but she knew who Stephanie was. An old girlfriend who was still hanging around John, and Sherri didn't like it when Stephanie would just drop by the condo uninvited. Sherri shared the condo with John, and Stephanie would come by unannounced. One day, Stephanie went to Sherri's job to tell her that she and John were still intimate. She showed up in short shorts and a tank top. Supposedly, Stephanie told Sherri, "If I can't have John, no one will, including you." Not sure if Sherri took that threat seriously or not. Sherri did confront John about the infidelity, and he came clean. He asked Sherri to forgive him, and she did. And Sherri married him in 1985. The couple began their lives together, but Stephanie was still coming around. Like, for example, Stephanie came over and asked John to wax her skis for her, which he agreed to do. Sherri even objected, saying, "What the heck? Why do you have to wax her skis?" And Sherri wanted to know if John and Stephanie were still having a fling. John said they were just friends. You think he would nip it in the bud? One day she came in uniform and armed. John was at work and Sherri was home alone. Stephanie did leave when Sherri very firmly asked her to leave. Sherri told her dad about that encounter, but not her husband. And she didn't call the police either because, well, Stephanie was a cop, so she was one of them. Sherri told her father she believed that Stephanie was stalking her. Then on the morning of February 24th, 1986, John left for work, and Sherri decided to stay home from work that day. John called a few times, but there was no answer, and the answering machine wasn't picking up either, which he thought was odd. A maid cleaning a nearby condo unit said she heard two people arguing in Sherri and John's condo. She said there was screaming and fighting going on. Then when John came home, he found broken glass in the driveway. Sherri's car was gone, and his wife was lying on the living room floor dead, shot 3 times. The scene told of a struggle. There was a bloody handprint. Sherri had defensive wounds and a bruise on her face from being hit with a gun, most likely. Her face was clearly beaten. The gun was fired through a blanket to muffle the sound. And Sherri also had a bite mark on her arm, and thankfully, that was swabbed. Sherri had fought hard for her life. LAPD detectives on the scene thought it was a burglary gone wrong. Electronic equipment was moved, but not taken. It was stacked up neatly by the door of the condo. Sherri's purse was gone, as well as her car. John was quickly ruled out as a suspect. Sherri's father told detectives about Lazarus harassing his daughter. But detectives said there's nothing there. They didn't look into Stephanie Lazarus at all.
He was always diverted. He was told repeatedly that he'd been watching too much TV.
Sherri's car was found parked 2 miles away from the condo in a higher crime neighborhood with the keys in it. It also had a few fingerprints that didn't belong to John or Sherri. The location of the car just backed up detectives' theory that this was a burglary gone wrong, and detectives stuck with that theory, and the case went cold. John Rutten moved away to San Diego, and believe it or not, he hooked up a couple more times with Stephanie Lazarus, even though John was even asking detectives to look into Stephanie as a suspect. So even if he remotely thought she was guilty, 1 iota of killing his wife, why would he want to be intimate with her? John remarried in 1991, but not to Stephanie. Sherri's parents kept fighting, calling detectives for updates, questioning the burglary theory. Who bothers to muffle a gunshot through a blanket? A burglar? Sherri was beat up, there was a struggle, and she was shot at close range. Nothing happened with the case for years. Stephanie Lazarus went on with her life too. She became a detective herself, and she got married. And then along came DNA testing. In 2004, detectives looked into Sherri Rasmussen's murder again. Thankfully, finally. And that swab from the bite mark on Sherri's arm was tested. It belonged to a woman. Detectives also found notes indicating Stephanie Lazarus was a suspect at one time, but never checked into. Supervising detective said, no, this is just a burglary. Maybe a man and woman did it together, and that's why there was female DNA at the scene. The case went cold again until 2008, when Detective Jim Nuttall came across it and said, this is totally solvable. Not a burglary, he said, staged maybe to look like one. But this was a murder scene. Burglars usually don't hit up condos either because they're surrounded by a lot of people and other condo units. Detectives were looking for a woman, and they talked to John Rutten one more time, who said, what about Stephanie Lazarus? You know, the woman I kept sleeping with. They planned to talk to her, but they kept it quiet. They didn't want anyone tipping her off. She was a detective too, after all. They looked into her background and found out that Stephanie had reported her off-duty gun stolen 13 days after Sherri's murder. What they needed was Stephanie's DNA, so they followed her and collected a cup she drank out of, but she threw it away. The DNA was tested, and it matched the swab. So next, they needed Stephanie to come in for an interview, and under some other pretense. So they told her it was about art theft, and that was her department as a detective. Once in the interrogation room, detectives pounced.
Let me ask you, you said you dated John. How long did you guys date?
I mean, what? Are you guys, is this something, I mean, you said I was going to interview somebody about art. I don't understand why you're talking about some guy I dated a million years ago.
Well, do you know what happened to his wife?
Yeah, I know she got killed.
What did you hear about that?
I saw a poster at work. I'm sure I spoke to him about it.
Right.
I mean, if you guys are claiming that I'm a suspect, then, you know, I got a problem with, you know, with that.
Okay.
Okay, so, you know, if you're doing this as an interrogation, you're saying, hey, I'm a suspect. Well, now I got a problem with, you know, now you're accusing me of this? Is that what you're saying?
We're trying to figure out what happened, Stephanie.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, do I need to get a lawyer if you're accusing me of this? You know, and now it almost sounds like you're trying to pin something on me.
No,
now I got that sense.
Well, what it gets to on these cases, and you know it as well as I do, our job is to identify and eliminate suspects.
I can't believe this.
So if we ask you to point, give us a DNA sample, a buccal swab, so we can identify or eliminate you, you'd be willing to do that.
Maybe. Because I know this,
That's what we're at to. I mean, because right now, from looking at the evidence, it's, you know, it's possible we may have some DNA at the location.
That's great.
And we're going to do what we can to try to put this thing together. And your name's in the book. These people are pointing at you for whatever reason.
I don't know why. That's crazy. I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
And you don't recall ever going into her house and having words and physically, you know,
No.
attacking her attacking you.
No.
Nothing like that?
No. I mean, that's, no.
Nothing.
No. No. Not at all.
Lazarus was asked for a DNA sample, and she said no. When she left the room, she was arrested.
Okay. Stephanie, you know you have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes.
Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand?
Yes.
You have the right to the presence of an attorney before and during any questioning. Do you understand?
Yes.
If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you free of charge before any questioning if you want. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you want to talk to us right now?
No.
Colleagues that knew her were shocked. Lazarus claimed her innocence. The trial took place in 2012. The motive, jealousy. John Rutten testified crying at times, saying being with Lazarus while engaged to Sherri was a mistake.
The fact that Sherri's death occurred because she met and married me brings me to my knees.
The defense stuck by the burglary theory, despite a DNA match from the scene to Stephanie Lazarus. She was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. She's still in jail today after appealing her conviction. Detectives early in the investigation defended their decision to not look into Stephanie as a suspect, despite pleas from Sherri's parents. During a hearing in 2023 to see if Stephanie would be eligible for early release, she finally admitted to doing it. She went to Sherri's that morning, insisting she needed to talk to John. A massive fight ensued, and Sherri was shot. Stephanie Lazarus was denied parole. This case should have been solved long ago. Instead, for years, Stephanie Lazarus was free to live her life while she took Sherri's life away from her. Was it because she was one of them, a police officer? At least to this day, Stephanie Lazarus is sitting in jail. Two things about this case that make me sick. The fact that she was a cop and she was never questioned, even though people brought her name up. And the fact that John kept sleeping with her, even after Sherri's death, suspecting her of doing it even. Maybe he was trying to get information out of her, we don't know, and he never said anything about it. What do you think about this case? Do you think Stephanie Lazarus should ever get parole? I really appreciate you watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And turn on those notifications. I'll be dropping another video soon, and I really appreciate you watching. Take care.